So what we're talking about right now are 7 back to school survival skills. And why do I call them survival skills? Well, because more than ever, we're actually having like some life life impacting things in the balance with COVID, with trying to figure out how we're going to navigate social and political unrest, how we're going to stay healthy and sane in all of the transition that we're going through right now. And so survival skills are what we need. And I'm going to go ahead and share up an image here if you're listening on the Raising Our Resilience parent group.
How we're going to stay healthy and sane in all of the transition that we're going through right now. And so survival skills are what we need. And I'm going to go ahead and share up an image here.
It says unaddressed impact becomes injury. Unaddressed injury becomes trauma, even if your intent wasn't to do harm. So in other words, you can have an impact on your kids that is like it hurts the relationship, or it hurts them, or hurts you. They can have an impact on you, and if you don't address it, it can actually lead to a deeper, more lasting hurt, like an injury. And then if that even continues, or if there are multiple injuries, it starts to become more of a traumatic series of events or an event. So even if your intent was to help them learn the rules, or help them get their butt out of bed, or get their butt into bed and get the sleep that you want them to have, if your intent wasn't to do harm, and yet the injury keeps happening and it's unaddressed, it just leaves this almost like this festering schism in the family, or between you and your child. And so what I really want, the place I want you to start today in this survival skills training, is how to own your impact in a way that shows kids how to also become aware of their impact and own their own impact, like really take responsibility for the effect they've had on others with their actions, so that the real healing of the relationship can begin, and just in general to resolve that incident or that conflict. So I have a 3-step system today that I'm going to be walking us through, and there's a few extra little steps if you want, if you feel like you need them. And it's called it the revisit reset. And it's when you revisit a conflict and you kind of reset the connection or the relationship through this specific inquiry of asking these questions and getting through these questions. But I want to speak a moment on impact first. So hang with me, okay? And if you're listening and you're with me, I want you to know you're here. Let me know where you're tuning in from, the ages of your kids. You just throw it in a comment and write the word impact, just so I know that you're with me and we're traveling through this training together. So for example, I would write Vanessa, El Cerrito, California, and you can even share the ages of your kids. I have a 21 and 24-year-old stepson and stepdaughter, and I would write the word impact right in the comments. So when you focus on impact, what happens is that oftentimes, and this is a really key thing for all relationships, and you know what I mean, think of someone in your life who will, have a negative impact on you, and then all they'll focus on is that it wasn't their intent. There wasn't their intention to harm. It wasn't their intent to upset you. And they just keeps going, I didn't mean to upset you. I didn't mean to upset you. I wasn't trying to upset you. But what they're not addressing is, hey, person over there, you clearly are upset, and I can understand why that would upset you. I've had an impact on you, right? And that feels so much better, because oftentimes what ends up happening is if people keep saying, I didn't mean to do harm, but they don't seem to have wrapped their head around what your experience, the person who was impacted, their experience was like. The person who was impacted doesn't have much reassurance that the harm won't be repeated. Yeah. So for example, like somebody's, you pack lunches for your kids, and your partner eats the last yogurt that was supposed to be for the kids. And they say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize it was for the kids. And you're like, mm-hmm. And it's really simple. Part 2 is, oh, that really makes it inconvenient for you. And now you don't have that yogurt to throw it and convenient food to throw into the lunch. Oh man, just a little empathy and a little acknowledgement of the impact can go a long way. And then I would take it a step further, which is to say, how could I fix this mistake, right? And starting to get into problem solving mode. So the first mistake to avoid that parents do and just people do is they'll focus on their intent instead of the impact that their action had. So if you focus on the impact more, it really does make a difference. It makes the other person feel more seen, heard, and understood about like why they're upset. It sort of gives them their emotions and their like complaint a little more credibility. And that way you have a way forward to just sort of talk about, you know, what solutions are actually viable. Because without knowing what the impact was, it's really hard to make a convincing suggestion. Like, I don't know if anybody's ever said like, oh, I'll just get you another, like in the yogurt situation, like, oh, I'll just get you another one this weekend. And it's like, well, but I need one today. So they haven't heard out like that now my day is harder, right? They haven't like noticed the impact. And so they're not dealing with that part. So that's the first thing that we want to avoid, is just focusing on the intent and not the impact. And when it comes to children, we're often having to bring their attention to the impact, because with their limited life experience, they may be, first of all, clueless to their impact. Second of all, they might see it but not understand it. Like, you have to like make sense of it. And then thirdly, like, they don't really know what to say about it, right? Maybe they just feel bad and they don't want to feel bad. So they're just like, I didn't mean to, and they want to run away, or, you know, they don't really know what to do next. So helping, modeling how to, you know, name the impact and that an action has had. Something as simple as, wow, do you see, like, after your hand bumped into your sister's back, or after you hit your sister, hit your brother, did you notice her face or his face? Like, what did it look like? This is for really young kids, right? Helping them to like read like the social cues of, ow, that hurt. I don't like that. I'm mad now, right? For older kids, you know, it might be more about like, did that have any kind of domino effect? Like, when you didn't pick up your clothes, then what happened? Oh, my aunt came over and she tripped and fell. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Right. So it's just helping to kind of like bring their awareness to it, because whether we like it or not, our kids can be pretty oblivious. And if you you agree with me and you've noticed that too, put it in the comments like, oblivious. Yes. Yeah. So that's the first part. The second part is creating like a safer container for sharing. In other words, you know, really checking in with the injured party to see if they feel resolved before you move on. I can't tell you the number of times that I've seen, and I've really well-intended parents and teachers have two kids solve a problem, and as soon as both people say sorry, they move on. And they don't take the time to pause and say, is there anything else that you need right now, especially to the more injured party? And saying, if you don't know, it's okay, I'll ask you again later. And then addressing to the other person, is there anything else that you want to share or express or say? And if they've completely missed the impact and the apology and the repair cycle, that's when you might start asking certain questions, which is what we're going to get to next. And then the last thing that like parents often and educators often forget to do, besides checking in that everybody's resolved to their satisfaction, besides focusing too much on the intent and not enough on the impact, the third thing that I really want you to be tuned into, especially as we're in this back to school time, is that things are so up in the air and chaotic, and we have so much on our plates that we often don't know when we should pause and fix and go through like a repair cycle, and when we should just let it go. And here's what I can say about that. If it is a recurring conflict, like the kids always fight over that toy, or the kids are always creating a big power struggle to get out of bed, or you know, it's always like a big meltdown or a big stink at the, like, when it's time to transition from screen time to dinner time. Like, there's certain sticking points or certain dynamics that just keep coming up. That's an area that you're going to want to actually take the time and do some repair and some resolution, and maybe even make a plan for things being better. Now, when you're in the planning stage, you can go all the way back to the skill 1, 2, 3, and 4, and look at how can I improve routines? How can I get kids on board with limits? You know, how can I make sure that they have emotional Like we're all like taking care of our feelings and emotions, making sure kids are properly motivated. Those are all in 1 through 4. So for number 5 right now, what I want to kind of focus in on is like, how do you shepherd in that conversation that's going to lead to improvement of the situation, improvement and repair of the relationship, and a positive way, a more like at least constructive way forward. So I'm going to share with you something that all of my clients are practicing with at some point in their program with me, whether they're a private client working with me for 6 months, or if they're in my year-long immersion. We always come to this model called the Revisit Reset that I developed. And it's a really simple, clear thing that you could print out and post up on the walls, that sort of thing, where you ask, these questions. How did it go? And this is just a way for folks to have a chance to share their perspectives, right? How can you tell? In other words, how can you tell how it went? So when you tried to get your sister to listen to you, to share the toy with you, how did it go? Well, not great. She didn't share it with me. Well, how could you tell? Well, and you can even ask, what did you try? Well, I tried asking her nicely and she just ignored me. Well, what else happened? What are some other signs that it didn't go well? Well, then we started yelling at each other, and eventually I just grabbed it from her and I was so frustrated. I had to stomp away. I really felt like I was going to hit her, that sort of thing. It's like, oh man, okay, got it. And I'm just gonna make this a little bigger. So that's a good point of just like for you as the person who's maybe shepherding in this conversation, to do some data collection, like get some information about the conflicts, let both people have a turn just to talk, and while the other one listens, and switch, and maybe even several times. It's a really good thing to learn that, you can resolve a fight or a conflict without having to overpower the other person, by being the louder person, by interrupting, by taking over. So this piece right here is an excellent place to start. Now, this one is written about like rules and limits, but it's really, do we need to make any adjustments to how we share toys? How we label food in the fridge, going back to the yogurt thing, right? Do we need to have a separate like bin in the fridge for the snack food so we don't accidentally eat up the kids' lunch yogurts and things? Or was it like, do we need to make an adjustment to the routine? Like maybe it's actually 20 minutes to transition to bed, not 10, and you can make an adjustment. So this is where people get to sort of like problem solve together, right? You get to be on the same team, and it's starting to put you into a place of collaboration, where instead of it being, us versus them, child versus child, adult versus child, you're actually working towards something together by making a needed adjustment. And what I like the word about adjustment is that, it's not always going to fix it right away, right? It's not going to just necessarily, we're going to one and done it. As a matter of fact, the one thing that I had to embrace so much, and I encourage all parents to just get on board with this, is that rules have to evolve, schedules have to evolve, routines have to evolve now more than ever, where we're like watching the news cycle and something changes, we get a notice from our school board, and next thing you know, right, there's a totally different setup for school or anything. So having these tools in your tool belt are going to be so helpful because it makes you adaptable. And what we've learned about resilience and research is that the more adaptable you are, the more that you can actually survive and even thrive through difficult circumstances like these challenging times. So back to the Revisit Reset. This is one that is really what I was focusing on quite a bit, because we were talking about when there's a conflict or like a real mistake that's made. And oftentimes this is the only thing people focus on, and they miss the other parts, or they'll skip it because it seems too hard to get anybody to apologize. So what I could say about this one is, see if you can find at least one thing that each person can say makes sense about the sharing part. So if I say, it was really frustrating when you didn't acknowledge, this is like more adult to adult, when you didn't acknowledge that it was a great inconvenience to me that you ate the yogurt, all you said was that you just didn't mean to and you forgot. That really didn't work for me. And then the other, then hopefully I'm hoping that my partner can say, ah, geez, yeah, that's true. I didn't even think of that. You're right. How can I make it up to you? Right? I'm sorry. So helpful. So finding one thing that makes sense about the reflection piece where the person shared can be really, really helpful. Just a simple thing. What can I pick one thing that makes sense about what the other person shared? Just one thing. Or is there one thing I can take responsibility for? It's a really good place to start. And you, again, want them to talk more about the impact than the intent as much as possible. Did you notice how much it hurt your sister's feelings when you grabbed the toy from her? Can you imagine that might be upsetting? Yeah, that makes sense that she'd be upset when I grabbed it from her. Even though she wasn't listening to me, I still can see that was upsetting. I've had 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, and 8-year-olds like give a little there, right? Like how kind of have some admission and some like admit that, yeah, there's something that makes sense about their reaction or the impact that they were feeling. So, and again, it doesn't have to go in this order. You can reflect, then repair, then revise. You can revise first because sometimes people have to start with problem solving mode, like fix it mode, and then they can go into reflect and repair. But this is just sort of my suggested, flow. And then the last two parts are the recommit, what will we do differently next time, and the review, what do we need to practice? Now, these two are kind of like more advanced level conversations, but I've had them with 3, 4, 5, and 6-year-olds and, being the leader of the conversation, facilitating. Something as simple as, what will we do next time? Well, when my sister doesn't listen to me, and when I ask her to share with me, and I try 3 times or I try twice, I'll come get some help instead of grabbing. And it's like, what will you do? I'll get help if she doesn't listen. Okay, so when you want the toy, like you can review it many times. So when you want a toy and sister's not listening and she's not sharing with you, you're going to try a couple times and then come get an adult. Is that right? Yes, that's right. What will you do again? Like just really getting there. So it's like fully comprehended and committed. And then you can also say, have the other party do the same, right? Like when I hear you say, can I have a turn? I'm going to do my best. I'm going to really try and listen. I'm going to listen, right? It's like a little kid. I'll listen. I'll share. It's like a little 2.5-year-old little sister. It might not be more than that, but at least it's a practice and a try to get closer to, mutual understanding and shared goals. So that's a really great next step. And then review is when, you have to actually practice it perhaps, right? So what's something you might practice in that scenario? You might practice a little role play of sister playing with the toy, brother coming over and saying, can I have a turn? And little sister going, okay. And then handing it over or saying, like 1 minute or 5 minutes, right? And practicing that. And then little brother pretends to leave for 5 minutes and play with something else and comes back. And then this time the little sister has to go, okay. And like hands it over, right? And then the brother can be like, good job, huh? Thank you. Good sharing, and they could practice that because oftentimes, they don't actually know what it feels like or what it looks like or what it sounds like to do that thing. In this case, share a toy, cooperatively. And then you can even role play a hard scenario where she gets to go, no, and he's like, well, I asked nicely. Remember, we agreed that if I ask nicely and I wait 5 minutes, he'll share with me. And she goes, I don't want to. And then he can practice coming to an adult and having the adult come over and help. And so he can go practice walking up to you and saying, I asked little sister to share, I asked her twice to share the toy. She refused. I need some help. Can you come help, please? Or just, Mom, I need some help. Can you come help me with sister with sharing, And it's amazing how much gets through in these little mini like practice sessions, these little mini conversations. Now, the reason I said there's 3 steps is because it's really just like, reflecting, repairing, and recommitting. Like those are the most important parts. The other 2 were kind of just like extra ones that you could try, right? But like you want to reflect, you want to repair, and you want to recommit. So like, how are we going to do this better next time? Yeah. So hopefully that'll be helpful as we come up to lots of different things that are challenging families right now. And I would love to hear in the comments, if you're right here in the Raising Our Resilience parent group, if you've already joined, you'll be able to chat with a bunch of parents right in our group and just put in, what is the number one conflict that seems to keep coming up right now in your family, whether it's between you and your child, between two children, between another caregiver and one of your children. I want to know what it is. And if you share it with me in the comments, then I'll be able to jam with you in that, comment thread and give you some support about what it might look like to use, that reflect, repair, recommit, sort of step of the revisit, reset. So to review, and you want to listen up to this, okay? Focus on the impact as much as possible. And really the word impact is so important. And we can even teach our children impact statements where they say, I feel, and they say how they feel when you, which really names like the thing that happened, because, and they say why. So it's like, I feel frustrated when you won't share the toy because it's my toy too, and I want to take turns and have a turn. I feel disappointed when you don't apologize well for, make light of eating the last yogurt when, because it actually put a dent in my day and it made me late for my first meeting. And then, because I had to come up with some alternative snack. And then that's where you can put in a request, like, could you please, take a moment to talk us through with me so we can come to some resolution, right? So how many of you, I would love to know, you can even put in the comments, like how many of you avoid conflicts? And I get it, like conflict was not fun in my family. There was a lot of anger. There was a lot of, you can't criticize me, you're the kid. And I understand, it's stressed out. When parents are stressed out, it's really hard to create this space. But I'm just wondering, like, how many of you also avoid conflict or have a hard time with it? That's why these kinds of trainings are really important, because when we want to create a healthier way forward than maybe what we're used to, or what our default is, or how we were maybe shown growing up. And, I have tons of compassion for the previous generation and what they had to work with. And we don't have to pass on that legacy either, right? We can have more tools to share for ourselves and for our children. So that's why these trainings are so crucial. I would love to know if that's happening for you. If it's something that, I tend to avoid conflict, share with us. I would love to know that. I mean, I know that I do, and it took me a lot of time to get comfortable with not only resolving conflicts in my own life, but also to mitigate for children and mediate. But what I've seen that's so powerful is that kids, because they're so young, because their brains are so plastic, because they're really wanting to learn skills of communication and problem solving, and how to be a good friend, and how to get what they need and want without having a big fight and struggle. They want these things from us, is that they can learn them and they can really replicate what we share. I mean, I've seen kids have a beautiful conflict resolution where they all had a talking stick. They used the speaking object. They took turns speaking and listening. They used I statements. They came up with a win-win solution, right? And so they did all the steps. They revisited, they repaired, and then they made a plan going forward, which is that recommit. And I'm talking like 6, 7, and 8-year-olds, right? Having a whole roundtable 15-minute conversation to work through a problem and then go skip off and play on the yard. It's more than possible. So if that's not yet happening, no worries. Like, I want you to know that it is possible and that there are steps to get you there. So if you're interested in learning more about conflict resolution and skills like this, I really want you to hop into my parent group if you haven't yet. If you're on the Raising Our Resilience page and you're checking out this as a post there, there's a way to join the group. So you click on the link that says join group, or right in this post, there's a link for that. If you're in our group, our Raising Our Resilience group, I want you to know that there are 3 powerful events coming up that I don't want you to miss. So you can go back and review this series, but these are different. These are webinars, like very, very topic focused, very powerful trainings. 2 that have been wildly popular, and one that's a newer one that went so well the first time that I'm doing it again much sooner than I thought. I was going to wait till next year, but I'm doing it next month. And that the trainings are how to navigate meltdowns, tantrums, and power struggles so that you can navigate those big emotions your kids have with more calm and more confidence. So if that is one that you're interested in, I would register for that. That's this Saturday. It's a free event. I give you a free guide that goes with it. It's by far my most popular workshop because we all have big emotions and we want to get better at it. Emotional mastery is so important, especially right now, and especially for building up our resilience. So I'm going to go ahead and throw that link into the page or into the post here in the group, so you'll have it. And so that's for you. And then I also have a 6-day training in the Raising Our Resilience parent group, where we're going to spend 30 minutes each day learning a powerful tool to stay calm ourselves, so that we have coping tools and strategies to help us to be emotionally resilient in these stressful times. It also helps us to model for our children ways that they can self-regulate and get their lids back on and get back to a calmer state to be able to go forward with, go to that next virtual session, or, put down that stick when they really don't want to, whatever it is, right? So that's a 6-day calm parent training. It's called Finding Calm in the Chaos of 24/7 Parenting. Because that's what we're doing, right? We're finding calm in this chaos. There's so much that's up in the air, and we're just doing our best, and we got to come together and get some tools. So I'm putting that as well in the group chat. There's a link to register to that event. And lastly, and definitely not least, is an event that I'm so proud of. I'm just so proud of it. It's a 3-day virtual retreat for parents, where we're going to spend Friday, Saturday, and Sunday together in virtual sessions that are highly interactive, tons of discussion, tons of crowdsourcing. And I'm going to give you all of my best research on motivation in 5 powerful tools that I've seen work over and over and over and over again to get kids engaged in their learning, to get them their butts out of bed or the butts into bed, to get on the same page around, like, how do we get ourselves motivated without having to have rewards and punishments built in, right? So if you are interested in your child having powerful strategies for self-motivation, for self-direction, so that they're more engaged and strive more, and don't sort of let their mood get in the way, or their ideas of, I can't do this, or this looks too hard. I have incredible motivation hacks. And the reason why we do it for 3 days is it's a really immersive experience that you get it like into your bones. Like, you can't forget things like growth mindset and scaffolding and all the things that you'll learn in this 3-day event. I have scholarships available, and I'm giving away free passes at the 6-day event. So if I were in your situation, I would just register for everything. And then if you end up winning the pass, then I'll reimburse you the tuition for the Motivation Mastery Weekend. So go for it. You might as well sign up for all 3. All right. Well, it's been so good to be with you here for another Mindset Monday. We're in the middle of our 7 ways to survive back to school with some serious survival skills. And this was only part 5. We'll be back for part 6 and 7 later on. In the meantime, do the repair. I'm serious. Like, it really makes the difference. Even when you don't feel like it, you're like, oh, should I bring that up? If it's something that keeps coming up, it's an ongoing conflict, don't let it ride over and over and over again, for the reason that I shared at the very beginning. Do you remember that info, that graphic that I shared with you? This one? Is that it? No, that's not it. It is the one that says, unaddressed impact becomes injury, unaddressed injury becomes trauma. And so even when our intent isn't to do harm, it can be incredibly healing for us to go ahead and address our impact and address the injury. I'm not able to pull it up for some reason. That's okay. We're just going to keep rolling here. So I commend you for listening to this training, for taking the time to be in a space where you're really thinking about ways of improving, as a parent, where you're really considering how you can bring more resources, tools, and strategies to your family. And I'm telling you, it's one step at a time, builds up. like they say, like, you know, and like the author of Atomic Habits, I was just listening to recently, was sharing, you know, it doesn't take a lot of, like it takes a 1% change in a lot of areas to compound into this incredible transformation. So if you're struggling in your family to keep it together, you're personally having a hard time struggling with stress, I'm just going to keep giving you these micro practices you can keep putting into place. And more importantly, if you feel like you would like to have mentorship and support in your life, I'm here for you. I'm here for that. Not just in the Facebook group and the free trainings coming up and the Motivation Mastery Weekend, but I'm here for the long haul. So let me know if that's something that you want. And we'll get in touch with me and we'll have a conversation to see if it's a good fit to do further work together. Otherwise, I bless you. Wish you the best. We're going to get through this together with greater resilience, and we go further together. And so I look forward to getting to know you and hearing your comments, and hopefully seeing you at some of these upcoming events. Bye for now.